Yes, I had to say that the panel will be in English, il panel sarà in inglese, coloro i quali vogliono la radiolina per la traduzione la possono prendere. So, I'm very delighted to welcome the guests that were here. I'm really thankful to Dr. Barbara Jatta, who has just took a plane to join us to end the symposium from Rome, the Director General of the Vatican Museum. Grateful to Professor Dr. Tarek Tawfik, President of the International Association of Egyptology, and probably Professor Massimo Osanna will join us online from Naples. It has been a very intensive 3 days for us. We are celebrating our bicentennial. We wanted to do it with colleagues, scholars and friends to understand where we are at now, 200 years after the foundations. What are the challenges of museum? What are the things that should be improved? What are our shortcomings? What are we heading at? We had 12 panels. We're starting with our advisory board. I think Diana is still with us and Vincent is still here. The other had to leave in the meantime. We talk about what is the situation of museums in Italy. Alessia Menta from the Vatican was here, Daniela Picchi and Anna Consonni that talked about what were the development within Egyptological museums in Italy, and Federico Poole talked about Naples. We talked about what it means today, presenting the heritage, taking care of the heritage. Massimo, buongiorno.
Buongiorno.
Ti sta salutando tutta la sala, so thank you for being here. I'm just wrapping up, because I know that you have little time and you have to go, so thank you so much for connecting and for being with us and for ending our panel. I will ask the first question to you, which is the question for the Director General of Museums. So you've been here, you have been following our symposium. In the past 3 days, we asked ourselves, where are we going? Where is the Egyptian Museum? What is its place today within the archaeological context in Italy? My question for you is, what is the state of health seen by the director of the museums, of all the national museums in Italy, of archaeological museums in Italy today? And how, from your point of view, how would you consider the Museo Egizio within the archaeological discourse in Italy? And by the way, Massimo is connected from the most beautiful archaeological museum in the world, as we said. He's also director of Naples, so this is the meeting room for the National Archaeological Museum in Naples.
Thank you, Christian. I'm very sorry to be in Naples and not in Turin today. It wasn't really possible, but I'm happy to be here with you and also thank you for your question, because it's also a good opportunity to say that I think the state of health of the Italian Museum in this moment, I think, is positive, is very good. Why? I am an optimistic person, you know very well, but I think so my vision of the Italian museum system, is a point. My point of view, I think, is good because I can see all the situation in the 492 museum of National Museum in Italy. And why I say the state of health is good? Why we are living a very a positive moment, thanks to different aspects. One, the new director of museum. There is also the very young director of museum that are now in the main archaeological museum of Italy. That also with the last public official we have in the museum are very, very good, because a person that's so consider the museum from another point of view. Not so with really, so the museum after the famous Franceschini reform. And now they are really a new approach where the enhancement is so important, like also the tutela, we say. No? That is very, very important. Christian, are you hearing me?
Yes, we hear you perfectly.
Look, the image disappeared. Okay, now I was afraid to be alone in this room.
No, we are listening to you. We can hear you very clearly.
We see you.
And we see you as well.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So first aspect, the new director, very, very good, and with a new approach. That they are really, they have the knowledge of what means enhancement in a public museum. And so I see a lot of manifestation, a lot of activity that are really, really good. Second aspect is funding. We in this last 2 years, for the next 2 years, we have a huge amount of money. Thanks to the PN that's me 300 million for accessibility in Italian museum, and 300 million for energetic efficiency of the museum. That's me the opportunity to change really the display of our museum, the display, the narrative, the languages, to display all to approach all the aspect of the accessibility. The accessibility, of course, not only from the architectonical point of view, but from the cognitive point of view. So that means we are really thinking about the new languages in the museum. For the public, they are all so different in our society, not only for the different in age or in gender, age, but also for ethnicity. So if I can say so, new approach from accessibility that is really important. And we organized in Rome last February a conference in order to present all this huge amount of projects everywhere in Italy. And was so after 3 days, also in that moment, in that conference, I was really so glad and also so proud about really this, because I had the opportunity to see how good are this project in order to change the vision of the National Museum, and also from the point of another point of view. So the green aspect of the museum. With other 300 million, we have really the opportunity to rethink all the aspect of the lightning of the museum, or also how to protect in a better way our heritage and so on. So thanks this funding, thanks to this new public official that really change the approach to our museum, I think the state of the health of our museum is very, very good. Of course, there are a lot to do. Is the problem in the Ministry of Culture? We know there are we need more architects, we need more archaeologists, but also we need a new professional figures. So we don't need only architect, art historical, or archaeologists. We need also. We discuss a lot about this aspect. Sociologists, philosophers, and also other specialists. That's now is difficult to have in our museum, of course. But thanks to the reform of Franceschini, also the museum with this autonomous administration, autonomous budget, they have also the opportunity to take personal, a new a new professional figure from outside, and this is also a new opportunity to change also the life of a museum. That is so the first question. The second about Egyptian Museum. I think the Egyptian Museum for us, for the National Museum, is a model. It's a model not only because you are the director, of course, it's a model because, so really in the Egyptian Museum, we know a lot of the initiative, a lot of manifestation, a lot of new display that are so inspiring. Really, so inspiring. The exhibition about the materiality is wonderful. Also, the new display of the La Galleria di Re is really wonderful, because also there is, you can understand when you visit your museum that at the base of all this activity, all this new display, there are research, there are knowledge, there are the right approach. So that is not only to show this material to give impression, or also emotional response to the public, not only, but also to give knowledge, and also to share knowledge, because it's also very interesting all the how you show your research. So the research is not something that you do inside the library or in the office, but you display your, so like the backstage of the knowledge. So how the research, what mean the research in a museum, in a modern, in a contemporary museum like the Egyptian Museum. So from my point of view, just congratulations, because really Egyptian Museum for us is a model.
Well, thank you so much, Massimo, for your. Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you so much for your words. I also say on behalf of our president who is here, thank you for your words, which are, very important for us to keep the path. Also, well said by the Director General of Museums, and also thank you for underlying how we tried in the past few years to put research and archaeology at the center of our activity, because at the end of the day, as you said, I think that's very important to stress once and for more that museums are a research center, that because we do research, we can improve our display, and that's how we can connect with society. We know that you have to run, but I would like to thank you for being with us and for bringing your greetings at the end of this symposium. Thank you so much, and a big applause for the Director General. So, actually what Professor Osanna said really is the key of one of the points we have been discussing this morning in a very interesting panel, which was about research. What are museums today? Are they a research center? And what is the relationship between universities and museums? This morning we were we had also some critical questions about how interchangeable are the role of museums of universities, both for professionals but also for students, and how can we, very often we talk about co-planning research in a museum, but can also a museum co-plan education, try also university to think a way of how the future generations of professions in the museum will be. And Professor Osanna was saying one of the challenges that we have is also what are the future professions in the museum. We keep hiring within the Italian ministry according to architects, archaeologists, and art historians. But is that enough? What do we need? So I would like to start with Professor Tarek Tawfik. We both, your hats of former director of the Grand Egyptian Museum And well, congratulations with the fact that 12 wonderful galleries have just been open. I haven't visited them yet, but I hear very positive things about. But you work in the field, you are an archaeologist, you direct the archaeological center in Luxor, you are a professor at university. So actually, in your professional life, you had to deal with museum, relations with museum and community, museum and tourism, research and education. So what do you think, how these three aspects can be seen in a museum? What is our relation to university? And what is, if we can just look at the future, what do you think are the professions needed in a museum 20 years from now?
These are a lot of questions. Thank you for your nice introductory words, and the words of Director Osanna, of course, were also already leading us into our discussion. It is, of course, the very interesting talks that we had, especially today also, in this symposium, have shown that there is a kind of tension between universities and museums. And this tension you can find everywhere in the world. Of course, in each country, it has its own peculiarities, but in general, this tension is there. And I think one of the reasons for this is that until now, we have not really accepted the fact that the relation between museums and universities must be a relation of complementing each other. It's not that one is superior to the other or one has to control the other, but it is very complementary. And actually, from my experience from the different heads, it doesn't work with one without the other, which means that throughout the history of museums, you had always people coming from academia to provide material and to do research and in museums. But nowadays, the role of museum curators has advanced so much that you need an additional training, a very thorough additional training to be a good curator. You cannot just come from Egyptology, for instance, and immediately become a good curator. You cannot come from history and be a good curator. You need really to be very well trained and in a lot of things in order to be a good curator. You were asking about the future. The future, actually, I see with a bit of worry, but this will give, and it will force more cooperation between academia, between universities and the museums, because we are entering an era where AI, artificial intelligence, will be part of our museums. And some museums, I just attended a conference in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia, about museums. They are building a lot of museums there. And I had the feeling that there was a general conception that AI will mean that you need less curators. And I had to explain that to the contrary, because the museums are a place of trust. Our audiences come and think that this is a place other than anywhere else, because we are nowadays in a kind of a contest with malls, with cinemas, with other places of entertainment. But when people come to a museum, they expect that they're coming to a place where they feel comfortable, as Friederike had said, and a place of trust, a place where they can trust the information that's there. And this will be in the future a very important role of the academics to come and to see what is being produced with artificial intelligence, what is trustable, what is correct, what can we present to the public, and what we cannot. So you will need a lot of experts, but this means, for instance, for a field like Egyptology, that the future of Egyptology is very much also connected with museology, because we will have to train our students in the future also to be able to deal already with artificial intelligence in order then to be able to provide for and to cater for the museums. So in the future, these things will become much more interconnected. The word that the world likes very much right now, interdisciplinary. But this is something that museum people can do very well in general. So, because you as a director, for instance, you had every day to deal not only with Egyptology. I'm sure you would like to do much more Egyptology, yeah? But you need to do administration. You need to see about the sustainability of the building. You have to deal with problems. You have to deal with public relations. So it's something very, a very big spectrum that has to be served. So you will always need also the university to come to help with scientific issues, to help in the future with AI, to help with providing new content. Of course, good people in the museum can provide content, but this student, the MA or PhD student who's doing Egyptology in our field, for instance, he takes several years to go into one thing, doing a lot of comparisons with a lot of material from everywhere in the world. Sometimes you don't have the time to do all of this. So they provide for you fresh information that you can use for temporary exhibitions, for new exhibitions, for renewing your own exhibition. So I think that it is a relation that just needs to become a bit more, as I said, complementary, to be a relation that relies on mutual respect of the competencies. And maybe this is something that in the past was not so, but I think it's coming more and more that the work of curators is much more appreciated, because it's becoming much more complicated also. And on the other side, the academic work is of great importance.
Well, thank you, Tarek. And you set the stage for a question that I would like to ask Barbara. I just realized when you were talking, actually, I'm the only one representing an Italian museum at the moment, because you are the director of the biggest museum in the Italian peninsula, but you're also in a foreign state. But we can say for sure that in the Italian peninsula, not in the Italian state, but in the Italian peninsula, you are running the only universal museum, encyclopedic museum that we have in the country. We've been discussing a lot these days about the value of universal encyclopedic. But just in the panel before our last panel, we were discussing about digital AI in a very nice way, mixing archaeologists with experts in digital. And at a certain point, Professor Maria Luisa Catoni said, well, are we really sure, because we're given as a given, that the objects will resist no matter what, that no matter whether we do a digital twin or whatever, but the object will be there. And I'm asking you that because you're running a museum where the materiality, the art history, the masterpieces of universal art are the symbol of your museum. That's also why the museum is very wanted. So many people want to come and see it. If you happen to be on a Saturday afternoon in the Sixtine Chapel, you encounter a lot of humanity besides the wonderful masterpieces that you have there. Do you think that the force of the museums, that museum there are material encyclopedia of the past, will endure in time? Do you think that we are challenged by new digital means? In the sense, Professor Maria Luisa Catoni was saying it could be a future when, also for sake of safeguarding, we say, well, maybe it's better to visit a copy of it, a digital twin, because the original. And or do you see a bright future? Do you still think that the agency of our materiality will keep? Also, you're also a university professor. You also come from experience from the library of the Vatican, so you were also dealing with manuscripts, with objects, with books. Do you think that this will endure, or that we also have to think out of the box?
Okay, allora, first of all, good evening to everybody. I'm very honored to be here and to be in this panel and to be really at the conclusion of 3 days, important days on such an important museum. So thank you, Christian. Thank you to Evelina Cristalin to wanted me here today. Many questions, what Massimo Osanna said and what he just said to all of us make me thought to many different issues of our work, the institution we are dealing with, I'm dealing with. No doubt that digital and AI are a major aspect of our contemporaneity. We cannot make without them. Absolutely. And we realized that during the pandemic. The digital aspect was crucial. I'm coming, as you said, from 20 years of Vatican Library. And in the main years, I was teaching in Naples, so very close to where Massimo was. And in the libraries, and even in that university, that was a university devoted to heritage and art and beni culturali, the digital aspect was crucial. And in the last 20 years, the Vatican Library made probably the most important effort to put a patrimony that is not visible like a museum. A library is not visiting. That was the cardinal, the prefect of the library was always telling to me, oh no, we are not a place of visit, we're a place of study. I was, as an art historian, pushing them to expose some of the objects, and with themselves, specifically with their own vision, and I was following the vision, we open an immense digital system of page by page of manuscript, page by page of incunabulas, page by page of printed books, page by prints, drawings, maps, coins and medals. So the patrimony of the library, if you go on the web of the Vatican Library, the papyrus are all on the web, you can really appreciate the great effort that has been made in the last 20 years. Pandemic, for sure, increased that. When I arrived almost 9 years ago to the Vatican Museum, I had a background as a librarian, even if I consider myself an art historian. And I immediately saw that the museum was wonderful for the welcoming, for all the visitors, but if you want to study, of course it's a research center, and it was a great research center for centuries, but only for people that had contact not a research center for a more spread population. So what I said with the background of the Vatican Library, I said, let's put online as much object, as much section of our museum as possible. So we increase enormously the website, the catalog online, which was of course in an intranet, but not. So we really worked a lot on that, and we were able during the pandemic to really to understand, because I'm convinced, and I'm always saying that if you want to prepare a visit, it's crucial to go on our web. If you want to go in deep after a visit, not even if you are not a scholar, only even if you are a normal person, a normal visitor that you want to, you can and you have to go in our website to go in deep, because it's the first step. We are now putting all our different department relazioni statement, annual statement. In each page we have a sort of many little website of the different department. It's not really a website, it's a portal where, and we have increased that enormously. And during the pandemic we were ready. Of course, we worked more and more with all the restoration statement and all the project, the photos. We are enormously increasing that. So really, the background coming from the research, the pure research center that is the Vatican Library, was used in the Vatican Museum in these last years. But no doubt, I will scream that visit one by one with original one will never be substituted by a digital form, never. So to say, I mean, for sure, the relation with I do not agree if Professor Catoni said that we will be seeing in the future, or our grandchildren will be seeing only a digital or metaverso of a sculpture. I'm convinced not. There will be more and more objects because the research will go on. There will be, of course, other form, but the direct contact is crucial, is essential. We have to strongly defend that. Of course, we have to use ID. We have to use digital. I'm now, for 2025, trying to have a class of artificial intelligence to all our staff members, just to let them use. I'm terrible. My son, that is 22, is in 2 seconds he can help me, and so I want to learn how to use it, because it's a form of research. Even that one is a different form, but it's a form of research. When we started with the computer, it was exactly the same thing. And what I've learned in my experience in the Vatican Library, that they were always updated. So research people like librarians, and even research people like curators and directors of museums, I mean, in my experience in the Vatican, were always updated. I remember, like yesterday, the prefect of the Vatican Library, we were starting to put in an OPAC, also in an online catalog of the library, not only the entries defining the objects, but even the images. And of course, my department, I was directing a department of graphic arts, so drawings, prints, maps, photographs, and it was the easiest one to start with. So, and they were flat, so it was easy. We didn't have yet a scanner for books, which preserve books. So a normal scan was easy. So I remember, like yesterday, I scanned the Apocalypse of Dürer, a very famous set of prints, and I put it online in our website, and I went home and tried to download the image from home. And it took me half hour. So I went back to the prefect and I said to the prefect, oh, no way, we have to scan them in a lower resolution because we need the people can download it much easily. And he said to me, no. In 3 years' time, everybody will have a computer more updated, and we don't want to go back to scan again objects. We scan it once, because scanning once means to preserve even the object, because of course with libraries it's easier to scan and to see, and you can even make a much better research with a digital format image rather than original. You need to see the original, but you can do research even with the digital for the libraries, for manuscripts, and he was right. In 3 years' time, everybody, now you can download in less than a second, a high resolution image. So we have to see further, but we must and we cannot absolutely lose the content of the originals.
Yes, well, thank you. And of course, I do agree on that. You also said something that has been coming back in the panels in the past few days, how the museums find themselves in a kind of dichotomy. We look backwards, but we have to look forward. So we, in the panel we just had, the title was, how can we be good ancestors for the future? So how can we, in this process of digital, prepare the knowledge for the generations to come, also of course making advantage of what we are using. So starting from that, how can we be good ancestors for the generation to come, and the generation to come will be different in terms of their, I mean, we are already some dinosaurs, because I remember I wrote my first MA thesis using a floppy disk. Now you cannot even use it, so you have to rewrite it. It's completely outdated. So we are already a generation that has learned to deal with digital means, but the native digitals now, as you said, your son, are much faster, they know much better than we do, and this will keep improving, which poses a problem for museum, the one of obsolescence, because in the moment that you come out with a digital project, is actually already outdated, because of a museum tend to be slow. I mean, you think a project, you have to find money, finally you have it, and the moment you have it is already old. So this is something that we have to take. The pace that we have to change things with digital is becoming much quicker than what museums are normally used to. But the generations to come will probably be very different also in terms of composition of the population. If you look, and we have discussed about it in our book about the bicentennial, look back on the demographic of Turin 200 years ago, is uncomparable to what it is today. Italy did not exist. There was a Kingdom of Sardinia. The composition of the population changed radically in the 20th century for the first migration from the southern part of Italy to here. And now people from all over the world, the new Italia will say that are here as well, with different background, different culture, different way to approach. One of the heated questions of the past few days, Tarek, have been a word that was used and a little bit contexted by Professor Loprieno, the word identity, how we should be careful in using the word identity, because it can be used and misused and also be seen in a kind of national or nationalistic view. And of course there is the issue, and we discussed it yesterday extensively, of contested heritage. And I ask you, as president of the International Association of Egyptologists, how do you think we can find ways to compose different opinions, opposite memories, how can a museum become a safe place where different opinions can be discussed with mutual respect, and how can we find solutions to democratize the access to our collections, which cannot be accessible only locally, but sometimes with digital also in other places. In other words, I asked it already the first day, do you think it will be possible in the future to build the impossible Egyptian museums, to repair some wounds and to build up a new narrative that maybe doesn't create that much contrast and can help people in meeting each other?
It has already started. And you know, there is already, if you go on the internet, there was already this global Egyptian museum. Yes, so, but it's surprising for all of us that this didn't really work, it didn't really continue, and if you go, it's rather empty. So this first step did not really work well. But what I'm seeing now, in general, is that there is much more cooperation between museums. Let me talk about Egyptian collections. Within the last few years, we have seen more than ever collections and special exhibitions where pieces were coming from all over Europe together in one exhibition, which means that these museums are working together. We have seen the EU project for refurbishing the Tahrir Museum with 5 European museums really dedicating time and effort to help with the refurbishment of this museum, which means that the idea of working together in harmony is already there. Now the idea of bridging old wounds by bringing pieces together digitally, for instance, of course this can be a kind of a solution. But this idea, and this is something which is not only Egypt, it's also, as we have said within the last 3 days, it is Italy, it is Greece, it is a lot of African countries, the repatriation.
And within the same country as well. We heard the other day from the our colleague Anna Consonni for the museum in Florence that the Chimera d'Arezzo, which is the most important piece in Florence, well, Arezzo would like to have it back. And so she always said, well, if we give it on loan, we never know whether it comes back. There is this agency of the objects anyway, communities that are very linked to objects whatsoever.
Yes. But this, actually this is healthy, that we are talking about these things. And we should not be naive about it. It is not something that will be solved very quickly, but it is something that people have become sensible about, and that people are talking about. Sometimes they talk about it in a very emotional way or a very naturalistic way, but there is a dialogue. And this dialogue, if we provide a museum, the Impossible Museum, and I wouldn't call it the Impossible Museum. I would rather call it the Wishful Museum, which is something that maybe at some point it happens. And some of the problems with pieces and repatriation are actually political problems and problems between governments. I think that some of these things in the future will be solved in a kind of people-to-people initiatives, where people in certain countries will have to vote if certain pieces should go back to their place of origin or not. But in general, the idea of us as museum world giving the opportunity through, for instance, AI and augmented reality and all the other possibilities to bring pieces together, and so that you have the complete picture and that you can convey the knowledge. I think this is already a great step. But I totally agree with my dear colleague that the original piece, this will always remain the star, because there is the fascination with what's old. Even in our own whole households, when we have something and we find a coin from the grandmother or something, we start dealing with it as a little treasure. So this fascination will continue, and it is within the human genes. So it will continue. And there is also an important point that you both have made. Something that we as museum people don't like to admit to ourselves is that everything is at the end perishable. So pieces are going to deteriorate. Whatever effort we do, we are just prolonging their lives. But in order not to see this as a totally sad thing, we are all the time discovering new things, and we are adding, yes? And this is what makes things even more precious, when there's only very few of them left. The last thing concerning the big amounts, for instance, of pieces that we have in museums. Yes, there are now sometimes pieces that are in storage. But in the future, these pieces might be elevated to masterpieces because they are still there and other pieces have perished. This also shows that the museology is a very dynamic world. It's not something, the old world keeper was really only saying that you are trying to keep something, but it does not reflect the dynamic work of a curator now. So the word curator is really the right word, and with this, curator is something really amazing. But as we have Evelyn sitting with us, a curator, without having nowadays, especially for museums, somebody that has a very alert managerial and financial mind that is in your back so that you can work freely in the museum, cannot be done. So this is also a new aspect, because in the past you had these museums that were patronized by nobility or by royalty, and they didn't have to think about the sustainability, the financial sustainability, and so on. Nowadays we have to, and it's becoming worse day by day. So, as you said, the museum, or the field of museums, is becoming much more complicated and much more diverse, and we as universities can only cater to help.
Yes, and we need help, because you mentioned a couple of words that I would like to steal from you for the question that I would like to ask Barbara. We talked about contesting heritage, you talked about dialogue. As a museum also fostering dialogue. The museum is also the place of otherness, where you meet the other being the object, chronological, topographical, and maybe nowhere in the peninsula, and for sure nowhere in the peninsula, Italian peninsula, this is so true as in your museum. the Vatican Museum are also starting a very important path. In a few days, the Jubilee will be open, so it will be also literally the place next to the Vatican Basilica where millions of pilgrims from all over the world will come also to see this museum. Kader Attia, a contemporary artist who has exhibited here at the Museum of Egizio in 2018 in a very nice exhibition called Statues Also Die. He was reflecting, and in that exhibition he was very struck by the revolution in Egypt, and when the museum was attacked, so he had empty showcases, and then he himself broke in a performance the showcases to put attention on how also in danger the cultural heritage can be. But he said something which I found one of the nicest definitions of museums. He said, we think that in the museum we collect objects. Actually, what is true is that objects collect humanity, collect ourselves. If you reverse the perspective, which I think could be one of the keys to look at the problem in a different way, how many people have been collected in this museum because of the Egyptian objects? How many people have met in this museum because of the Egyptian objects? How many people will meet in the future because of the Egyptian objects? So, because of the curatorship and the willingness of those who founded the museums, people and humanity keep meeting in different percentages coming from different worlds. So it is a place of dialogue by definition, and your museum for sure, especially well, the new section Anima Mundi, and you said something, Tarek, that normally museum had patronage from aristocracy or from kings. Well, the Vatican Museum officially still has a king, which is the Pope, which puts you in a very different position. It doesn't mean that you don't have to deal with financial issues. Completely the opposite, because she has to sustain and help also the Vatican State. But it's this very nice position that you still have, the tradition that still lives also in the kind of governance that you have. But how can and how will the Vatican Museum foster dialogue in this very, very important year that we have ahead of us?
Okay, thank you. It's a challenging question, but I will try to answer so many suggestions that are arriving from your question. Recently, we have been together at the Louvre with the Bizot Group, which is a meeting of major museums director coming from all over the world. And one of the key panel was museums as new agora, so as new place where the meeting of different things, where things are happening in many different directions. And of course we all agree that we have to redefine the role of the museum, even though I'm convinced that the key role and the role of keeping the heritage from the past and sharing with the present and the future generation has to be the key and the focus of and the mission of our work. But still we are new. For sure, we are the modern agora, the place where many things happens. In an Egyptian museum, you are thinking to have, of course, a contemporary artist exhibit. You are having concerts. You are having conference on different themes, more and more in different museums. So it's really a modern place of sharing ideas and sharing and education in a wide sense. Of course, the big and major issue before the pandemic time was the traveling of massive people, the incredible numbers of people in our museum. So it was really the key problem, and it still is in some ways. But on the other side, what we have experimented in these at least 2 years and 2.5 years of very low people is to well understand who is coming to us and how we can be a really bridge of different cultures, a bridge of different people that are coming to us, but they can even take advantages of different meeting people, meeting different even heritage. Of course, you said it's easy for us. We are a universal museum going from Egyptian to contemporary art with a great medieval, Renaissance and Baroque art and many Etruscan, Greek and Roman and many issues. But really the key thing that happened after the pandemic is that we have much more young generations coming to us. Amazing to see single, not even teens, people from, and young people from 20 to 40, 45, 50 years old, just coming just to increase the knowledge, increase the, and be educated exactly as you were saying. And this, we can know, and we know what, where they come from and what are the different culture, because from this year, from 2024, we have decided to have a personal ticket. So you have to book online, you have to sign your name, you have to have a passport to come in. We are a foreign country, so when you are traveling, you have to have a passport, an ID document. And so we know exactly where all our visitors, the range. He was asking me how many people we have every day. We have put a sort of limit. I cannot say that officially because the Pope has to be an open house, and so we have 25,000 person per day that are coming with a division. We are open 12 hours per day, and we have each half hour a group of person that can come. But if you don't want to book online, you can put you on a queue outside, and we have even that we make enter people. So the maximum you can arrive is 26,000 per day, 26 or 26 and 500 people per day, which is fine. We had much more before the pandemic, and it was really not what we wanted, not sustainable. Not only for what you have said, you risk not to have any more the mosaics or the floors, the beautiful floors of our museum. If you go through the the wonderful staircase of the Pio Clementino Museum, and you see at the stairs, you can't see anymore the stars of the coat of arms of Pio VI Braschi, because they are all used by the people that so the work of the people. I mean, they were used, and they were like a normal floor. It was used, and they were with stars. You can barely see them in some places. So what we really need is to preserve this patrimony, but even to share. And we try to do that in a form that when you come to see us, you can appreciate what you are seeing, and it's not a massive. And we are, I think that we are in the good and the other thing, we have 7 miles of museum, 7. And we are trying to open more and more, working with the management and with the of course, there's the funding, the economical issue that allows us to. We have 400 guards But if you are open 12 hours, you cannot have people working every day 12 hours, because after 1 week they are not coming. so it's management deal, is an economical deal, is a good sense way of acting that took us to organize in this 2024 in the really in looking at the 2025, the great jubilee of 2025 that we will open in few days. So we have new rules, and in the same time we are opening other section of the museum. We last year we opened a section devoted to Canova, our 200 years figure. This year we open a new section devoted to the ceramic, the medieval and modern Renaissance ceramics from our collection that was always in stocks. We have almost between 70 to 80% of objects in stocks, and only is 25% on display. And so more and more in the future, of course, as a director, I would like to add new wings everywhere in the gardens. But the Vatican City State is only 44 acres. And of these 44 acres, of course, 22 are bushes and gardens. But I would like to take something, but I mean, of course, we are looking at the future. What we have pushed very much this year is that, like the Louvre, in a very tiny way, we are going to our papal palace in Castel Gandolfo, or in the papal building in St. John Lateran, and we just opened last week a new museum in St. Mary Major Basilica. So we are trying in the Vatican possession to have exhibits, I ask all the curators, even to Alessia Menta, just to think or a permanent collection or a temporary exhibit to be displayed in Castel Gandolfo. Last Saturday we have opened 2 exhibits in Castel Gandolfo where we have put 5 wonderful paintings of Renaissance time, of the Quattrocento, one of Ghirlandaio, another artist, that nobody sees almost in the painting gallery of the Vatican Museum, because it's in front of the Leonardo, it's close to the Bellini, next to Raphael. Of course, you are not looking unless you are a specialist of Ghirlandaio. There was amazing. You can see it, you can appreciate. So little and temporary exhibits in another space can help just to appreciate. And even with one work of art, and with images or digital help, you can tell stories. You can tell really good stories, our history, our heritage, even with one work of art, if you can tell it well. I don't know if I answered to your question, but many other things, but we are running the time, so I don't know.
Yes, because we are approaching, we just have 17 minutes left, and I have another question to ask them, but I would like to keep a little bit of time, since we are also ending this 3-day symposium, for questions you might have, either for Tarek, for Barbara Jatta, because, well, you have the chance to we have them here to close our beginning of celebration, President, because this is not the closing of the celebration, because as you have seen, we are halfway. Now we go back in buildings. That's why it's, and we will been enriched by all your ideas in programming the new agora, because we will have the new Piazza Egizia opening next year. There is something that you said that is very important, which is space. How space creates a new context, how space defines the objects. I have to ask you, Tarek, you were the one preparing the GEM, the Grand Egyptian Museum. We heard Neil Spencer on the first day said that his feet were still hurting after 11 kilometers of a museum. How are the objects coming to life in that new space, a museum that you work so hard for, and in this new environment of, so we always used to be called the little brother of the Cairo Museum. Now we are the little brother, because there is the Namek, there is Tahrir, which, as Friederike said, remains the mothers of all museums, but we have the Grand Egyptian Museum, which is the biggest museum in the Egyptian scene, and not only. How is this new space, and how space can determine the way we look at objects?
I remember standing in the building in 2016 when we were preparing for the Ramses Colossus to enter the atrium. And when it entered the atrium, this concrete building turned into a museum. And I was thinking, standing there, everything that I'm planning and that I'm participating in now is something that I have to think about generations to come that will outlive me. I will not be there. And I have to think way ahead for a building that's supposed to live for 100, 150 years.
The building is pharaonic in itself. Well, in Egypt you couldn't expect anything else.
But just to come to space. Space is important, but actually the dialogue between the designer and the archaeologists and the collection managers is very crucial. And this did not happen to the fullest extent with the Grand Egyptian Museum. So the designer at the beginning who designed the museum did not really have a full idea of the amount and of the sizes of the pieces that will be inside this museum. So nowadays, sometimes when you are in this museum, you are in front of a colossus, but you still have about 20 meters above until you have the ceiling. So you don't need actually these 20 meters, yes? But you have this impressive building. So space is something very relative, and it can turn as a weapon against you when it is too much space. And although this museum has been built in order to be able to show 50,000 pieces, people now are saying, once we have opened 12 galleries, that there are too many pieces and we have only 25,000. So space is something also that you feel. And this is why also how you put the pieces, exactly what you said. One piece can make a difference if you put it and if you explain it in the right way. So as I said once before in this conference, we have stars, star pieces, and we have pieces that are like a supporting actor. And with a new museum like the Grand Egyptian Museum, where half of the pieces are pieces that have never been shown before, you are introducing new stars and new supporting actors. Yes. So this is amazing. And one last word, which is a problem for us as people who work in museums. We sometimes have to be careful not to think that we are doing the final fantastic work of art. because these objects will outlive us. We are only guests.
Of course, and it's something that we are reminded also in the beautiful building that house our collections. In the gem, you have a new building. This building was never thought to be a museum. It was thought to be a boarding school when it became the seat of the Academy of Sciences. But at a certain point, there were different museums being here, but museums have been separated, and now we're expanding. I'm also trying to find every single corridor I can find to put some new pieces. And it's interesting that from the very beginning of this museum, from Cordero di San Quintino till now, everybody has been complaining because of the lack of space, which is something that you recognize as well. So the Grand Egyptian Museum is a new museum. You are at Palace, the Palace of a Monarch, which is still a palace of the Pope, and part was given by the Pope to share in this new concept that art is not only for the monarch, but is for the universal church in this case. How do you deal with such an incredible palace, who is it by itself a masterpiece, and all these objects of art in which the curatorship has to be very careful and very respectful force of the building when you are. But you have been doing recently amazing and very daring new, the Apollo Belvedere, which is just reopened, with very new and contemporary elements inserted in it. So at the one end, the restitution, the hand which was original, and then also showing how the new technology in a palace and in an octagonal garden, which has all its difficulties.
Allora, many ideas from your question. Tradition and innovation. This is also our fil rouge. We have to deal with the tradition. We have to deal with the museum spaces. Some of them conceived as palaces. I had a problem on the plane coming back because tomorrow the Secretary of State wants to use the Sistine Chapel at 6 o'clock, and we are open at 6 o'clock, and so we have to close at 5 o'clock because they have to prepare for the Secretary of State, and they just said to us 2 days ago. And so I tried on a phone call, trying with the Secretary of State, just to gain some hours or some half hours, because of course we have to tell our visitors that they have to go out and they cannot stay in the Sistine Chapel and in the galleries, at least the Sistine Chapel, because but the Sistine Chapel is a round tour, so it's very complex not to visit other places if you don't go through the Sistine Chapel. So this is an issue for sure, but it's part of the fascination of our collections, because of course it's a living, it's life, it's a papal life, it's a curial life, is part of our, and now we will be opening the Jubilee, and we need to support the Basilica and support to all this amazing event. So it's really physically we have to help them to help the Casa della Prefettura della Casa Pontificia for the Jubilee. But in the meantime, the issues are many. You were talking about tradition and innovation. We recently, not on Egyptian, unfortunately, but on a Roman and a Roman inspiration Greek icon of our collection. One is the Apollo del Belvedere, the other one is the Ercole Mastaia, an immense bronze of 4 meters high, totally preserved, incredibly preserved in gold leaves. And it was put in the rotunda room of the Pio Clementino when it was discovered, totally preserved during the time of Pius IX. So that's why it's called Ercole Mastai from that Pope. And what we have done, and I like to spend a few seconds on the Apollo del Belvedere project, it was a problem of stability and fragile, exactly what we were talking about, of this really icon of beauty from Plinius to passing through Winkelmann and many others. It is considered the key image of beauty of our culture. And it was very fragile. In 2019, they came to me, the curators came to me and they said, oh, we have to restore him. Then we closed it in January 2020, then pandemic arrived and we had other issues. So it was closed for almost 4 years, the cabinet in the Cortile Ottagono. And only in the last 2 years we were able, in 1 year of project, of technology project, how not to move, because it was too fragile to move. He had traveled in Paris during Pius VII and Canova's time, and then went back thanks to Canova. Then he traveled again. In 1980s, thanks to a terrible exhibit in the US where it was totally damaged because they restore, but badly restore, and the traveling was terrible. So what we have decided after 1 year of studies, after 14 different kind of technology study, is to use fibra di carbonio, carbon fiber technology, come si dice, un'asta, different. A pole, yes, a pole, that you can see it. It's black. We decided to leave it black. You can see behind the legs of this beauty sculpture, but it helps us. And it's really exactly what we wanted to. We wanted to preserve, but not making a fake new leg of the Apollo. But in the meantime, we were able, thanks to Claudia Valeri, the curator that studied the excavation in Baia, and with the excavation in Baia, she found, a group of archaeologists found a hand that was probably, and we are convinced that is the hand of the original, and from the bronze, from Leocaris, from which the Apollo version, Roman version, was converted in marble. And so we had a copy of the copy of the hand. And so we were undertaking the restoration, and we said, okay, the research is exactly that, and we are going back to where we start at the beginning. Research is crucial. We are a research center. I am convinced, and more, I'm coming from that, but I'm convinced that the museum has to be a research center in the present and in the future, because research and curatorial research, even directorship research when we have time to do it, is crucial to go on and to build and to keep going in a proper way the Museum of the Future. And so with this study of Claudia Valeri, we were able to experiment. We took off the Renaissance hand that we will keep, and maybe next director will put the hand, and I'm fine. It's a question, and now we go back. What is a museum? It's a place of mind, it's a place of meeting, it's a place of sharing, it's a place where ideas are growing up, it's a place of changing things. So it's really a modern agora, and I'm convinced more and more, and I feel so privileged that in a part of my life I can give a little help to that, and so
I so agree with you, and by chance, because we didn't agree in the beginning, but it was nice that we ended with the Apollo Belvedere, because as you know, it's also linked to one of our major piece of work in this museum, which is Ramses II, which when the father of our discipline, Jean-François Champollion, saw it here, he realized how refined it was, how incredible piece of work it is. And he said, but then history of art history of ancient Egypt exists. This is really the Apollo Belvedere of ancient Egypt. So, well, we have here also an icon of Egyptian art and Egyptian beauty. I had promised questions, but I see that we have run out of time. So I just want to conclude to thank all of you, all the colleagues that have been here, just reading two little paragraphs of the speech that I had the enormous privilege and honor to address to the President of the Republic. You were there, dear Tarek, but you said that the English translation was not coming through, so at least you hear now two small paragraphs. So, about what is a museum, what you were saying. The amount of material evidence has grown nowadays. The knowledge of researchers has increased. Input from other disciplinary fields have contributed to our understanding of the objects, and the addition of diverse perspective has enriched the discussion, and we have just talked about it. Having said all of this, we nonetheless know that we know the past only in a granular way, as a collection of fragments that we aim to connect with one another. Therefore, our perception of the past remains exactly this, our perception. Like anybody else before us, we look at ancient Egypt through the lens of our time, and our current interpretation is bound to be superseded in the future, just as has happened to the interpretation proposed in the past. Museums, besides acting as safe places for fragile and precious objects, represent the physical materialization of this lens. As such, they must evolve over time and be able to intercept and progressively incorporate social and epistemological changes. The future of museums will depend on their ability to share with the publics not only the outcome of research performed on the objects, but also the results of a double process, a transparent and constant process of introspection, and a dialogue with the other actors on the stage who have so far been kept to one side. In any given moment, the present is what connects past and future. Being aware that our point of view is always relative by definition constitutes the main instrument we can use to face this challenge. And I think it's the only one we have. Keep studying, keep researching, and keep asking questions. So in thanking all of you, all the friends, scholars, advisory board, Willeke, I also see you here, I hadn't mentioned you in the beginning, Willeke, Vincent and Diana is still here, and Tarek, of course, who was part of our meeting. I also would like to greet Professor Ray Johnson, who is leaving us this week after our having a very, very welcome a scholar in residence. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for studying our collection. But I would like to thank each one of you for having spent 3 days with us in helping us thinking what is the past, but especially what is the present and the future of the museum. As I said in the very beginning, I will give you some homework because we want to publish the results of our discussions, because I think it's important for us as a community, is important for the visitors, is important for the scientific community as well. Last but not least, I would like to thank Federico Zaina for his help of support organizing this. Thanks all the curators who have put together a very nice and rich project, and please, really, my heartfelt thank you to all of you, because I imposed the conference 3 weeks after the opening of the museum. I can assure you that this was not an easy task, having an opening and well, all of this. But I would like to name some people who were absolutely fundamental. Eleonora Mander, Aurora Greco, and Sabina Metti, who helped so much with the organization. Our event office, and especially Rosanna Lanza, Simona Moripelle, Beatrice Zecchini, Sofia Ciardi, and Arianna Agostino. The Office of Interpretation, Accessibility and Sharing of Knowledge, and especially Sarah, who has been feeding all the social media and dealing with what has happened here also to the people that followed us at home. Last but not least, I would like to thank our volunteers, ACME, amici e collaboratori del Museo Egizio, who help us every day in opening the library, in taking care of us, in helping, in guaranteeing us. I cannot name all the participants, but your name will remain in the publication, so the memory of what you have done will be here for the generations to come. And together with you, I wish to wish the Museo Egizio a happy birthday and hopefully a beginning of at least another 200 years. Thank you.
Thank you to Christian.
Thank you, President. Not all of you were here at the beginning of the symposium, but then I want to share with all of you. Evelina mentioned at the very beginning, we welcomed the President of the Republic on the 20th of November, but the day before, the Minister of Culture gave the most beautiful, most wanted gift to the Museo Egizio. So Evelina has been renewed as our president for 4 years. So thank you so much for all you have done, and thank you for